What's up, creepy crew? You know, most people go through life thinking scary stuff only happens in movies. Then something happens to them, something they can't explain, can't shake, can't forget, and suddenly the world looks a little different, a little darker. Tonight we've got a fresh batch of those stories, and I'll warn you right now, don't watch this one alone. Let's dive in. When I saw them on the security footage, crouched between the server racks just 2 aisles away from where I'd walked, I felt my stomach drop. They'd been watching me through the gaps in the boxes the whole time. Let me back up. I'm a night manager at a computer parts warehouse in Phoenix. 12,000 square feet of expensive equipment I'm supposed to keep safe. Usually I have a crew of 4, but early December means vacation season. And that week I was working with just one guy, Daniel, who left at 10 p.m. From 11 to 7, I was completely alone in that massive building. My job at night is mostly paperwork, checking automated alerts, signing off on shipments, and doing quick walkthroughs. Boring stuff. The kind of boring where you start noticing tiny things that don't feel right, even if you can't say why yet. The first couple of nights that week, I kept getting these little glitches. The loading bay door sensor chimed like it had opened, but the door was still shut and locked when I went to check. One of the handheld scanners showed as in use, even though all of them were sitting in the charging cradle. Our software is flaky, so I logged both as system issues and tried not to think about it. Still, it left me with that tight feeling in my chest, like when you're sure you forgot to lock your apartment, but you're already halfway to work. On Thursday night, Daniel slapped the metal frame on his way out and said, "Enjoy the peace, man." And I joked that my only fear was running out of coffee. I walked him out, watched his taillights leave the lot on the cameras, and went back to my desk. It was around 3 in the morning when my computer pinged with a security notification. Unauthorized inventory scan in Section D. At first, I thought it was another software hiccup, but the timestamp said 2 minutes ago and the scanner ID was one of ours. Nobody else was in the building. Section D is where we keep the processors we ship straight to data centers and clients. Each box is worth more than most people's cars. I sat there, hoping another alert would pop up saying it had cleared, then finally pushed my chair back, grabbed my badge and a handheld, and headed out onto the floor. On the walk over, I kept forcing myself to think of boring reasons. Delayed sync from the day shift, IT running a test, some automation bug, anything except a person. Section D looked normal when I walked in. Lights on, cage door closed, shelves lined with white processor boxes in neat rows. I pulled up the item list on my scanner and started counting. Row by row, shelf by shelf, the numbers didn't match what I was seeing. 23 units showed in the system that just weren't there. When I crouched to check the lower shelf, I saw clean rectangles in the dust where boxes used to sit. We hadn't cleaned that aisle in months. If the dust was wiped away, someone's hands had been there very recently. The cage lock was still in place and the numbered seal wasn't broken. No torn tape, no crushed packaging, no mess at all. Whoever took them knew exactly which SKUs to grab and exactly how to move without leaving much behind. That was the moment I accepted someone was inside my building. I walked fast back to the office and shut the door. I grabbed the landline and dialed corporate security. No dial tone, just dead air. I tried the second line. Same. My pockets were empty. My phone was in the car outside. Walking out there blind felt reckless. Instead, I sat down, opened the camera client, and scrubbed back a few minutes before the alert. On one feed, I watched myself walk into Section D. On another, 2 aisles over, 3 dark shapes unfolded from between the server racks. One of them leaned to a gap in the boxes, clearly watching the aisle I'd just walked down. What I saw made my blood turn cold. I scrubbed back to around midnight on the footage. Two men in dark clothing walked up to the east service entrance, held something up to the electronic card reader, and the door just opened. Like they had legitimate access. They moved with purpose, no hesitation, walked straight to Section D like they knew exactly where they were going. Then I saw the timestamp from 1 a.m., my regular walkthrough. There I was on camera, walking down the center aisle past Section C. And there they were, in Section D, just 2 aisles over, crouched down between the equipment boxes, completely still. I walked within 10 feet of them and had no idea. My hands were shaking as I kept scrubbing through the footage. Around 2 in the morning, they carried the first load out through that same service entrance, loaded it into a white van with no plates. Then they came back inside. On the last frames I could see, they were heading towards Section F, where we kept server motherboards. My brain started filling in the parts the cameras couldn't see. Them listening to my footsteps, timing my route, figuring out exactly how long they had between my passes. I backed the footage up again and paused on a frame where one of the guys was leaned toward the gap in the boxes, his head tilted. If I had sneezed or dropped my keys, he would have heard it. I zoomed in as far as the software allowed, but their faces were just dark shapes under caps. No logos, nothing obvious on their clothes, just plain work jackets. I checked every other camera angle we had of that side, hoping I'd catch a better shot, but they kept themselves turned away like they knew where every camera was. I clicked through the timestamps and watched them move in and out of blind spots, always just outside the clean angles. They never rushed, never looked confused. At one point, one guy checked his watch, while the other scanned a pallet label like he was just doing a regular shift. That bothered me more than anything. People who are scared move fast and sloppy. These guys were comfortable in my building. If they could walk in and out around me once without getting caught, what stopped them from coming back whenever they wanted? Maybe on a night when I didn't notice the alert. I tried pulling up access logs for that east door, but the system just threw an error. Database unavailable, contact administrator. That same stupid red message that had been popping up all week while everyone blamed IT upgrades. Looking at that error with the frozen image of those two crouched behind me on the other screen, it stopped feeling like random glitches and started feeling like somebody had planned around them. I opened the alarm controls and double-checked that the dock doors were armed and the motion alerts were active. I wasn't going to walk back out there and play hero. I just needed to stay ahead of whoever was in the building long enough to get real police involved. I didn't wait to see more. I logged out of the camera system, unlocked the office door, and bolted toward the parking lot, my sneakers loud on the concrete. Every gap between racks looked like it could have someone in it, but I forced myself not to slow down. I cut straight to the nearest exit, slapped my badge against the reader hard enough to miss the first time, and pushed out into the night without looking back. I made it to my car, dove in, and locked the doors before I even reached for my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I had to redial 911 because I messed it up the first time. I told the dispatcher I was alone, that intruders had used a card to get in, that I had them on camera loading product into a van and they might still be inside. She asked if I was safe. I told her I was in my car with the doors locked. She told me to stay there, keep everything locked, and said a patrol car was only a few minutes away. I just stared at the side of the building, especially the east service entrance. I kept expecting those guys to walk out and turn their heads toward the lot like they somehow knew I was watching. Instead, a set of headlights swung out from behind the warehouse. For a second, I thought it was the cops. Then I saw the shape of the white van. No plates on the back. It rolled out from the far side of the building, paused for a couple of seconds at the edge of the lot, then turned and disappeared down the road. About half a minute after that, a patrol car pulled in with its lights off, just the regular headlights on. The officer parked a little away from me and walked up slowly, had me crack my window, then step out once he'd looked around. I went through the whole thing again, from the alert to the footage, to the van I'd just seen leave. Within 10 minutes, more units showed up. They went in as a team, cleared section by section, while I stood by my car with one of the officers, answering small questions he had about the layout. When they finally came back and said the warehouse was empty, I felt this weird mix of relief and anger. Empty meant I wasn't crazy. Something had actually happened. But it also meant those guys were already gone with whatever they'd managed to grab. Detectives showed up later that morning. They pulled the footage, asked about our access control system, got the on-call facilities guy out of bed to dump the logs. A couple days later, a detective called me at home. He told me they'd confirmed the e-service door was opened with a cloned card tied to an old vendor badge, one that should have been deactivated but wasn't. Combined with how the men moved on camera, he said it was obvious they had inside information. What sections held the most expensive gear, where our cameras were weakest, what our overnight staffing looked like, right down to the fact that I was alone after 11. Final audit put total stolen value at $173,000 in processors, motherboards, and networking hardware. They never caught the guys. Our company reacted fast. New badges, new door schedules, more cameras, stricter rules about walkthroughs. We had meetings, policy changes, an internal investigation that never named anyone. But it's been 4 months, and I still wake up some nights thinking about that footage of me walking past Section C while they sat there in Section D. Close enough to hear my footsteps through the gaps between the boxes, just waiting for me to go by so they could quietly empty the shelves. When that guy offered to walk me to my car, I should have realized something was wrong, but I was too out of it to think straight. This happened about a year ago, when I volunteered at our university's basketball game. Semifinals, big crowd, everyone was pumped. I was a junior doing volunteer stuff for the free food and credits. We'd been running around for hours, handing out towels, directing people, all that. So by the end my legs were shaking, and I just wanted to sit down. After the game, the organizers invited all the volunteers to the VIP lounge for snacks and drinks as a thank you. It sounded good, mostly because there were chairs. The room was loud, full of staff, a few players, random donors. I didn't want alcohol because I had to drive, so I went straight to the cooler, grabbed a sports drink, checked the seal, opened it myself, took a few sips. Then I set it down on the bar counter next to Jessica's bag. Jessica was our coordinator, standing right there talking to an assistant coach, headset still on, clipboard under her arm. She was one of those people who always seemed in control. My bottle was basically under her nose. If anyone messed with it, she'd see. I chatted with another volunteer a few feet away, glancing over now and then, and seeing it exactly where I'd left it. About 5 minutes later, Jessica tapped my shoulder and asked if I could help carry some boxes of t-shirts to the storage room. Quick job, her words. I was exhausted, but saying no felt wrong when she'd been running around all night. I left my bag and my bottle on the bar and followed her. The storage room was down the hall. We made 2 fast trips with the boxes, joking a little, though she still looked stressed. Total time gone. Maybe 5 minutes. When we came back, my bottle was exactly where I'd left it. Same little ring on the counter, cap upside down next to it. Jessica was still nearby talking to an arena manager. Nothing looked different. I didn't stand there analyzing anything. I picked up the drink and took a long sip because my mouth felt dry. Over the next few minutes, I finished it while people talked, music played from somebody's phone, a couple of players posed for photos. I texted my roommate Emily that I'd be home late and started thinking about my 8 a.m. lab. About 10 minutes later, something was wrong. At first, I thought it was just being tired and hungry. Then my legs started feeling like they weren't really attached to me. When I stood up straight, the room tilted slowly, like a delayed roller coaster. Sounds got warped and distant, like I was hearing them through water. I grabbed the edge of the bar because my hands suddenly felt clumsy. I leaned toward the girl next to me and tried to say, "Hey, I don't feel right." It came out thick and slow, like my mouth was full of cotton. She frowned and asked if I needed to sit down, but her voice sounded far away. After that, it's fragments. Somebody holding my arm, my knees giving out. Jessica's voice near my ear telling me to breathe. Hallway lights sliding past, the floor tiles swimming. I remember trying to say, "I only had one drink," and my tongue just wouldn't work. Then nothing. Next thing I remember clearly, it was afternoon, and I was in my own bed. My head didn't feel like a normal hangover. It felt like I'd been unplugged from reality and plugged back in wrong. Emily was sitting in my desk chair, hugging her knees, staring at me like she was waiting for me to die. She leaned forward right away. "Do you know what day it is?" I had to think about it, which scared both of us. My phone was on the nightstand, plugged in, with a bunch of notifications. When I tried to sit up, my body felt heavy and slow, like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. Emily told me Jessica and her boyfriend had brought me home around midnight. I'd been awake, technically, eyes open, but not really there. I wasn't answering questions, just staring past them. Emily said she wanted to call 911 because I was moving weird. Like a robot, is how she put it. Jessica talked her out of it, said I'd just overdone it at the game and needed to sleep it off. When I finally got my mouth to cooperate and told Emily I'd only had one sports drink that I opened myself, she just froze. Then she said, "No, that's not normal. Someone put something in it." Hearing her say it out loud made my stomach flip in a different way than the nausea. Emily insisted on taking me to urgent care. I didn't fight her. At the clinic, I kept losing my train of thought, so she explained everything to the doctor. He ordered blood tests, but told us right away that too much time had probably passed. A lot of drugs don't stick around longer than 12 to 24 hours. The tests came back clean. He said that didn't mean nothing happened, just that we couldn't prove it. On the drive home, the fog in my head started lifting little by little. I forced myself to rewind the night. That's when I remembered an important detail. Before Jessica sent me to the storage room, I'd been talking at the bar with two guys from the arena's service crew, the ones in gray polos with radios. They seemed normal at the time. They asked harmless questions. Did I go to school there? How many games I'd volunteered? If I had a boyfriend? One of them did most of the talking, the taller guy with a tattoo on his forearm. He stood close enough that his arm was resting on the bar right next to my bottle. In Emily's car, I replayed that over and over. Me turning toward Jessica when she called me. Him still leaning there, my drink between us. I couldn't remember actually seeing his hand touch the bottle, but everything between that moment and the hallway lights was blurry. Then another memory surfaced. When Jessica was helping me leave the lounge and I could barely walk, that same tattooed guy came up again. I remember him stepping in front of us, saying he'd walk me to my car, that his truck was close, that he had water and I could sit down while Jessica finished up. His tone was friendly, almost helpful. Jessica shut him down immediately. I don't remember her exact words, just that her voice went sharp and final. She kept her hand on my arm and steered me toward the exit. He backed off with his hands up like, "Hey, no problem." At the time, I was too messed up to think about it. I was just trying not to collapse, sitting there later, clearer than I'd been since that night. All those pieces lined up in my head in the worst possible way. He was trying to separate me from her. The university launched an internal investigation after I filed a report. I went to campus police first with Emily, then they looped in administration. Telling the same story again and again was draining, but I kept doing it because I didn't want anyone to say I was just tired or dramatic. They pulled the security footage from the VIP lounge in the hallway, and set me up in a small office to watch it. The cameras were there, but the angle on the bar was useless. You could see my arm, Jessica moving around, the service crew guys, players, and random people leaning over for snacks. You couldn't clearly see who touched what on the counter because bodies kept blocking the view. They slowed the clip down, zoomed in, replayed the few minutes after I walked away and left my bottle there. But it was all shifting shoulders and backs. Watching it made my skin crawl because I knew something happened and still couldn't point to a single frame. Campus police brought both service crew guys in for questioning. I wasn't there, but the detective walked me through what they said. The one with the tattoo admitted standing near the counter and said the lounge was crowded, and that was just the open spot. He claimed he thought I looked pale and out of it, and he only offered to walk me to my car to help. He denied ever touching my drink, and his coworker backed him up and said they were unloading equipment most of the night. There were no fingerprints they could really use, nothing in my blood work, and no clear footage. Not enough evidence to press charges. The detective kept repeating that, almost like he was apologizing every time. He looked me right in the eye and said, "I believe something happened. We just can't prove who did it." Hearing that made my skin crawl. I walked out feeling like my body had been a crime scene that got wiped clean. I left his office more angry than scared. In the weeks after, my brain ran every possible version on a loop. Maybe those guys wanted to get me alone when I was helpless, and Jessica shut it down without even realizing it. Maybe it was some stupid prank that was never supposed to go that far. Maybe someone else's drink was the real target, and mine was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The not knowing is the worst part. It sits in the back of everything like a blank spot where an answer should be. I've been anxious in crowded places ever since. Even standing in line for coffee makes me watch who's near me and where their hands are. At parties, I either keep my hand over my cup or don't drink at all. I'd rather seem uptight than feel my body shutting down again while everyone thinks I'm just tired. I replay what could have happened if Jessica hadn't walked me out, or if she'd let that guy lead me to his car. The investigation went cold after a few weeks, and the emails from the school turned vague and careful. Security added more cameras, signs, and rules about lounges and drinks. But that doesn't undo anything for me. I still see that tattooed guy at the arena during big events, pushing carts around like nothing happened. I can't prove anything, but my stomach drops every time. And I'm posting this so you remember to guard your drinks and question help when you're vulnerable, even in supposedly safe places. This happened last spring when I was driving back from Utah State to my home in Tempe, Arizona for spring break. I was 21, wiped from midterms, running on gas station coffee and a podcast. It was late Thursday, around 11 p.m. I was on I-15 heading south, maybe an hour and a half from home, cruise control on, hardly any traffic. I kept thinking, just make it home, sleep 12 hours, reset. Near St. George, my car did this tiny jerk, like someone briefly tapped the brakes. I paused the podcast and listened. A minute later it jerked again, harder, and the RPMs bounced. I pressed the gas. The pedals sank, but nothing happened. The car stopped pulling. My speed started dropping. 75, 70, 65. Adrenaline hit. I flipped my hazards on, checked my mirrors and blind spot, and eased onto the shoulder. I hate stopping on the interstate, especially at night, but I didn't have a choice. By the time I coasted to a stop, the engine coughed and died. All the warning lights lit up at once. I tried restarting it. The starter cranked, that dry whirring sound, but the engine wouldn't catch. I let go before I flooded it. For a second, I just sat there in the dark, hands on the wheel, listening to the tick of the hazards and a semi roaring by way down the road. Then I grabbed my phone. 2 bars. Battery 18%. No charger. I called my dad. He picked up almost immediately. "What's wrong?" "Don't freak out," I said. "My car died. I'm on I-15 past St. George, on the shoulder. I'm fine." His voice changed. "Lock your doors, right now." I hit the lock button, checked each door light and the windows like 3 times even though I knew they were shut. "Are you alone? Fully on the shoulder? Hazards on?" He rattled off. "Yes. There's no one around. The car just died." "Listen," he said, very serious. "Do not get out of that car. If someone stops, you do not open the door. If they act weird, you lay on the horn and you call 911 immediately. I'm coming. I'll be there in about 3 hours. Call the police right now and tell them you broke down on the highway at night." He used his no-argument tone. Hearing him like that scared me more than the actual breakdown. He drove trucks in his 20s. He's not dramatic about road stuff. I said okay, promised I'd call, and we hung up. The car suddenly felt very small. I pulled up the dialer and hovered my thumb over 911. Then I froze. No one was bothering me. I wasn't blocking a lane. I pictured cops showing up, looking at my dead car, asking why I didn't just call a tow. I only had 18% battery. I decided I'd wait. If anyone stopped and felt off even a little, I'd call immediately. I turned on battery saver, dimmed the screen, stuck the phone on the dash where I could grab it. I shut off everything but the hazards. Outside, it was just black desert. Every few minutes a set of headlights would appear behind me, sweep through the car for a second, and then disappear. Otherwise, it was just the ticking relay and my own breathing. About 40 minutes went by. My back hurt from sitting so stiff. I checked my phone, 14%. As the screen lit up, I saw headlights way back in the rear view, low to the ground, looked like a dark sedan. It was coming up slower than the others, kind of wavering between speeds. As it got closer, it moved into the left lane, past me, and I watched it keep going north. A couple minutes later, I saw what looked like the same headlights again, but now on the northbound side, heading the opposite direction. It must have crossed the median and looped around. It passed me on the far side and vanished into the dark. My shoulders tightened. People miss exits, I told myself. They turn around. It's normal. 10 more minutes, nothing. I checked the time, checked my battery, 12%. I was about to call 911 just to make my dad happy when the same sedan appeared again, behind me in my lane, now coming from the south. As it reached my car, it slowed way down, almost to a crawl. I turned my head and clearly saw the driver turn and look straight at me as he rolled past. My heart started pounding. The sedan kept going. Then its brake lights glowed faintly and disappeared up the road. 5 minutes later, those headlights showed up again. This time the sedan passed and then eased onto the shoulder maybe 50 meters ahead of me. It stopped. Brake lights went off. Headlights went off. Just a dark car-shaped shadow in front of me. I didn't move. I just stared at it, fingers resting on my phone. A minute passed. Then another. Nothing. No door opened. No interior light. The whole thing felt wrong in a way it hadn't before. Like this had switched from annoying breakdown to something else. Then the driver's door opened. Interior light flashed on for half a second. A man got out. Tall, thin, dark hoodie or jacket. He shut the door and stood by his car facing me. Not waving, not yelling, just standing there. I grabbed my phone again. Battery 11%. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. He stayed like that maybe 30 seconds. Then he started walking toward me along the shoulder, slow and steady, like he wasn't in any kind of rush. My brain finally kicked in. Get a plate. Get proof. I unlocked the phone, opened the camera, aimed at his car. On the screen it was just a blurry, dark blob, autofocus clicking in and out. He kept getting closer. I swung the phone to the rear of his sedan, trying to catch the plate. The image stayed grainy and useless, but in the faint reflected light, I could make out the first two letters on the plate. L and P. LP something. I blinked and glanced at the corner of the screen. Battery 9%. The man was already about 10 meters away when I gave up on the stupid photo and hit 911. I backed out of the camera, dialed, and put the phone to my ear. 911, what's your emergency? A calm woman said. I started talking so fast I almost tripped over my own words. I'm on I-15, south of St. George. My car broke down on the shoulder near mile 23. And this guy from a dark sedan keeps driving by, and now he's walking toward me. I'm alone. I'm scared. Please send someone. Okay, she said, not raising her voice at all. Stay in the car. Do not open the doors. Are they locked? I said yes. Good. We have your approximate location. Nearest patrol is 20 minutes out. I've dispatched them. Stay on the line with me, all right? I glanced at the corner of my screen. 7% battery. Outside, his steps crunched closer. He reached my window and knocked lightly with his knuckles, like 3 polite taps. I kept staring straight ahead. You still there? The operator asked. He's at my window, I whispered. Right by my ear, through the glass, I heard, Need help? His voice sounded normal, even friendly, but there was no nervousness. No, you okay? Just this flat calm. Without looking at him, I said, I'm fine. Help is coming. My voice shook anyway. He paused. You sure? I can give you a ride, he said. It's a long way to town from here. I'm waiting for the police, I said louder. I already called them. In my ear, the operator said, Good. Keep telling him that. Windows up, doors locked. My phone flashed a warning. 5%. He's still there, I told her. Patrol is about 15 minutes out, she said. You're doing fine. Just stay put. The battery icon blinked red. 3%. The screen dimmed, then went completely black, and her voice cut off mid-breath. I sat there with the dead phone against my ear, listening to my own heartbeat and his breathing through the glass. In my peripheral vision, I could see his outline. He didn't knock again, didn't yell, didn't try the handle. He just stood there. It was probably under a minute, but it felt like much longer. Then he slowly turned away. I watched him in the side mirror as he walked back to his sedan, got in, and shut the door. The car stayed dark. No headlights, no brake lights, nothing. He was just a shape on the shoulder about 50 meters ahead. That somehow felt worse than when he'd been right next to me. At least then, I knew exactly where he was and what he was doing. Now there were just 2 parked cars in the dark, and I had no working phone, no proof the patrol was really coming. I started counting in my head just to stay sane. 1 minute since the call dropped. 2, 3. Every time a random car or semi shot past in the left lane, my car shook for a second and then everything went quiet again. 5 minutes. If the dispatcher was right, maybe 15 to go. 7, 10. I checked the time on the dash because I didn't trust my own counting anymore. 12, 14. The sedan still hadn't moved. Around 17 or 18 minutes, I finally saw faint blue flashes way back behind us, then red with them. A patrol SUV grew bigger in my mirror, light bar going. The second those lights hit the shoulder, the sedan in front of me came alive. Headlights snapped on, engine started, and it yanked onto the highway, swerving a little as it merged and then speeding off south. The patrol SUV stopped behind my car. I rolled my window down with stiff fingers while the officer walked up with a flashlight. Only then did I realize I was crying. My face was wet and my throat hurt. You the one with the broken down car? He asked. I nodded and told him everything, tripping over the timeline until he had me slow down and repeat it while he wrote. The car dying, the sedan looping past, the man at my window, the 911 call dropping. Dark blue or black sedan, older model, plate starts with LP, tall, thin male in a dark hoodie or jacket, he repeated back. That sound right? I said yes, as best as I could remember. He didn't treat me like I was being dramatic. He said he'd put the description and plate fragment out on the radio, then checked my registration, confirmed my dad and a tow truck were coming, and told me he'd stay behind me with his lights on until they got there. My dad and the tow showed up about an hour and a half later. My dad went straight to the officer, talked quietly, then got me into his truck. On the drive home, he barely spoke, just kept glancing over at me like he was checking I hadn't disappeared. About 2 weeks later, my phone rang with a Utah number I didn't know. A man introduced himself as Detective Ray Morrison from the Washington County Sheriff's Department. He said he wanted to ask a few follow-up questions about your incident on I-15 and asked if we could meet. We met at a cafe near campus. He wore plain clothes with a badge on his belt and carried a tablet. After some small talk, he opened it, turned the screen toward me, and showed a grainy photo of a dark sedan at a gas station. "Recognize this?" he asked. It looked like the car from that night, the same general shape and color, but I couldn't swear to it. "Maybe," I said. "It looks like it, but it was really dark out there." He nodded. "This vehicle is connected to the disappearance of a woman named Cristina Delgado," he said. 24 years old. She was driving from Las Vegas to Salt Lake City about a month ago. Last confirmed sighting is on cameras at a gas station in Mesquite. Her car was later found abandoned on the shoulder of I-15 about 10 miles north of where you broke down. No one in it. He watched my face for a second, then continued. Her body was found 3 days ago in a wooded area off a service road. Different county, same corridor. Another witness reported a dark sedan in the area that night. Their description and partial plate match what you gave the responding officer. Plates starting with LP. We believe it's the same car, and likely the same driver. I just sat there, thinking about that man leaning toward my window, saying, "Need help?" in that calm voice. "You were very lucky you called the police," Detective Morrison said quietly, "and that the patrol got there when they did. I still can't drive on highways alone at night."